Everybody, today we are going to be making a pair of paperback pants. Now this was a request for me and I've never made this before, and I actually already have my pattern and pockets made, but I'm going to show you how to make this lovely pattern and how to put together these paperback pants. As I stated, this is a request, and I have some lining fabric here that's going to go on the inside of our waistband, and I also have some blue fabric here. This is like a cotton fabric. This is a cotton twill. Actually, this is a French twill that I'm going to be using for our project today. We're going to need some elastic, whatever size you decide that you want on the back part, but we'll talk about that shortly. And of course the iron. I have here what I use to make my patterns most of the time. I'm either using this or I'm using just regular printer paper, but this works excellent for patterns. You can iron it because it's like paper bag and it's cheap. I get a roll of this at the dollar store and it's just packaging paper when you're mailing she can take her tag off when you're mailing packages. But these are a pair of Autumn's pants and they're actually dirty, so I'm not going to show you. I kind of snagged these out of the laundry room so I can show you how to make the pattern. Now these pants are a larger size for her. They're actually a size 8 and they're very long. So what I'm going to do is roll this up. Just so you know, Autumn is between, in her pants, she's probably about a 7, but she's been growing so big, so much. I buy her a size 8, and like in her shirts, she can still fit like 6X and 7. So I've been buying her larger, but just so you have a little bit of a background on Autumn. So I'm going to roll these up a little bit just because the pants we're making are going to be a little wider than a normal pair of pants. So what I normally do is just kind of roll this out. And I'll roll this out this way. And I have a Sharpie. You can use a pencil or whatever you want to use. Now, little tip here. If you're going to make any pleats or if you're using elastic, my tip to you would be to add about 2 inches to the side. So you can either measure that or eyeball it. These are slim jeans that I bought on them. So I'm just going to go a little bit outside because I want that extra room just so she can have and I can pleat it in the front. So we're just going to go and trace around the pants. I normally go about 1 inch or so up from the waistline, just so I can have an even line across. So we're just going to trace down. And one little thing you can do is trace the exact form of the pants and then go outside of that line again and trace over to get your desired shape for your pants. And if you're a little bit of a perfectionist, because I already have my pattern already done, I'm just doing this to show you how to do it. You can use a ruler if it's too difficult to do it this way. Now, you can either do a front and a back piece, or you can just do the same piece. I actually have a front and a back piece, and I'm actually going to show you also how to trace out for your pocket. So for this, I'm just going to show you just that one, and we're going to cut this out, and then I'm going to show you how to do the pocket. So what we're going to do now is make our pocket, and like I said, I already have my pattern piece made, so this is just for you to see how to do this. And if you want to cut 2 pieces out for your pattern, like I said, you can turn the pants so you can do the front side and then turn them on the back side so you can trace the back side. Or if you want 2 equal parts, you can cut out one end, turn it over, trace it and cut it out again. So I've already started because this is going to be the inside of the pants. This is the side where the pocket would normally be. I'm going to go ahead and just make a cute little design here for the pocket. And yours can be straight, diagonal, however you want it to be. This is normally the side where the pocket is going to be. So I just kind of made a slight little curve, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. I can find my scissors. This is what happens when the phone rings. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then we're going to make the pattern for our pocket. And you're going to have two pieces that you're going to need for your pocket. Okay, so I just cut that out, and this is what it looks like. So we have that. So what we're going to do is place this down, and I'm right-handed, so everything is easier this way for me. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you in any way. I don't mean to. So I'm just going to set this here. And then what I'm going to do is to make the first part of the pocket. And that's going to start by just tracing along here. You're just going to trace along the small part. So this is how I have mine, and of course my hand is not steady today. And I'm going to straighten that out just a little bit more, and then I'm going to come down and around. And you can go down as far as you need to go down. And you're going to kind of curve it around. I know it looks kind of weird, but it'll all make sense once we have it all done. Okay, so there we have the first part of the pocket. We're just going to cut that out. So this is what our little weird pocket looks like right now. And it'll all make sense to you once we get it all together. So now we're going to make the second part of the pocket. So we're just going to take this. I'm going to move it down just slightly using the same area. And I'm going to kind of use this as a format as to how far I want this to go down. But what I need to do is to make sure that this piece actually has to be the size of the side of the pants. This is a little bit shorter, as you notice. It's actually the formation of the area of the pocket, but this one has to go up the side, the same side, because this is going to be the part we connect to the pants to make that a full pair of pants. And it'll all make sense to you once I have it all done. So like I said, just go ahead and trace that all the way across the top. Okay, and then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to set this here, because this is actually how it's going to go. And I cut mine just a little bit slightly over. That's okay, so I'm going to take that, and then we'll go down and just trace this around. And your pocket doesn't have to be this big. You can make it smaller. You can do whatever shape you like. You can do square. This is just what I'm doing. Okay, so we're nearly done with our pattern pieces here. Okay, so this is what this piece is going to look like. Like a huge pocket. And like I said, this will all make sense once it's time to put the pocket pieces together. So let's just cut this out. And there's no perfect way to do pockets. I've always found pockets has always been like one of my biggest pet peeves when working with fabric, and I don't make pockets a lot unless they're on the outside. But you find what's comfortable for you. You find what works. If the hand goes in the pocket, it looks right in the pants, I always say go with it. Your pattern pieces are not going to look like anybody else's pattern pieces, just like your pattern pieces may not look like mine. And mine obviously may not look like yours. So, I like to keep rolls of this handy just because I make a lot of my own patterns. Okay, so we're going to cut this out, finish cutting out our pocket. So, if you're anything like me, I like to cut all my pieces out, meaning the main pattern piece, pockets, waistline, anything like that. I like to cut all of that out before I actually start sewing my items together. So what I'm going to do for this tutorial only, I'm going to use just this piece that I created with you. So I have mine pinned to my fabric, which makes it easier for me. If I was just doing something really quick, I probably wouldn't pin it, but it kind of makes it easier when you're cutting it, and it keeps it laying flat. So I am cutting this on the fold, and I do have my fabric with the right sides facing each other. So I am actually looking at the wrong side of the fabric right now. So I'm just going to cut this out, and I did iron this. I love working with this kind of fabric because it's easy to iron, it's easy to work with. You don't really have to pin it when you're sewing it together. It's really great. This is more of a, I want to say like a spring, summer kind of early fall fabric because it's a, I say it's like a medium weight. So I wouldn't say that it's something that can probably be worn throughout the winter unless it had like a lining with it. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut. And these scissors, I love them. And I like cutting all the way across just because I keep my scrap pieces of fabric. So I like them to be a little bit more even when I'm working with them. So if I just cut it all the way across, then I'll just cut down that piece. So now I'm just going to go ahead and finish cutting out my pattern. So now I have that one piece cut out. I know I told you to cut on the fold, but if you did, go ahead and make that 2 pieces because the front part needs 2 equal pieces just because we're making this with the pocket. If we weren't making this with the pocket, it would be okay to cut it on the fold. Now for the back piece, you don't want to cut out the pocket part. The back piece needs to be the full pattern. So you're just going to follow that line up and do not cut that curve for the back piece. And you're going to cut 2 pieces for the back piece. So now we're going to start off with the pockets. And I'm actually going to do for our small inside pocket, that's what I'm going to use the lining for. And this is just a scrap piece of fabric that I have from something else. So you're going to cut 2 each of the pocket, each piece of the pockets, because you're going to have 2 pockets. So just iron out your lining if you need to. Have it on the right setting so it doesn't burn. I'm using a polyester lining. I get most of my fabric from fabric.com. At times I do go to other places for my fabric, but right now I'm using the fabric that I got from fabric.com. And this polyester lining is actually really cheap. It's only $1.98, which is pretty awesome. So you're just going to cut 2 pieces, not on the fold. I'm just going to pin this up again just to make it easier for me to cut. So what I'm going to do first is cut across the bottom. Like I said, just so I can have an even scrap piece that I have for later on for another project. I've been really sick, guys. I know it's been a long time since I've done a video and I have so many things that I'm working on, but I've been really sick. So it's been really hard for me to get videos up. If you watch my family channel, you know about that. So we're going to set this piece aside as well. And now we're going to cut this piece. And for this piece, we're just going to use our scrap fabric here. Not that piece. Here it is. So I'm going to use this cut. And you're going to cut 2 of this piece as well. And when you cut, just a little tip, make sure you're cutting on the wrong side of the fabric. You want your right sides of your fabric facing each other. I always cut on the wrong side of my fabric, and even when I get new fabric and I pre-wash it and pre-shrink it, when I fold it back, I'm folding it so the wrong side of the fabric is always facing me. And that's a good tip to have. You always want to pre-wash and pre-shrink your fabric, just because, you know, when you pick up fabric from the store, or if it's coming to you in a box from the mail, you know, you order it online, it's in a factory, it's dirty. Clean it. Put it on a gentle cycle. I use the most gentle detergent that I could find, like a baby detergent or something that is free and clear of any toxins I use to wash. And I put it on the lowest setting in the dryer when I'm drying it. And then I just fold it back up. And then you won't have to worry about your seams shrinking and ripping after you do them. Because if you don't pre-shrink it when you wash it, your seams tend to tear, and then you have to fix that area. So it's always important to, at least if you're not going to pre-wash it, pre-shrink it. So we have our pocket pieces. We have our 2 here. We have our 2 here. We have our 4 pieces of pants. And all that's going to be set aside for right now until we get all of our pieces cut out. So now we're doing a waistband. Because I did cut up a little bit on her waist when I made the pattern, I'm going to make this 2 inches. That way when I fold it over, it's going to be an inch waistband, which is going to be great to put my elastic through. So you have a measuring tape here, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces, and her waist is anywhere right now between 22 and 23, depending, you know, over the summer she kind of ate a lot, so it goes up. But you're going to cut that because I'm cutting the long waist. You want to make sure the one side is half of, let's say, 22. So if I cut this at 22, I'm going to cut my pieces both at 11. But for this project, because I added a little bit more inch, because this is going to be a more flared leg pair of pants, I'm going to add 2 inches to that. So instead of that being 11, I'm going to add 13 because I'm putting elastic through, and that's going to kind of shrink that fabric up. So what we're going to do first is we are going to start by putting our pocket lining on. So what you're going to do is this curve that you created here for your pocket, you're going to take your lining and you're going to sew it like this, because what's going to happen is once you sew that together, you're going to flip it over and then it's going to be on the inside. So I know it looks kind of weird now, but I will show you what I'm talking about, just in case you don't see. So this is the curve that you created when you cut. You're going to take the lining, set it on top, don't think you're doing this wrong, and sew along here. And you can do a zigzag stitch, you can do a finishing stitch, or you can do a straight stitch. I'm going to use a zigzag stitch. I'm just going to pin this down so that I can sew it. And don't worry if it's a little bit over what you cut. If you overcompensated, that's fine, because you can always cut that little piece off later. So I'm just going to use the zigzag setting on my sewing machine. Most sewing machines have a zigzag setting. So I'm using a black thread, which is fine. If you're doing a colorful pair of pants, you may want to use coordinating thread. Black is fine for me because this is navy blue. Unfortunately, I don't have any more navy blue thread, so I'm using black. And like I said, I'm going to use the zigzag stitch on my sewing machine. I'm just going to start here at the top. I'm going to back stitch to secure it. You want to secure your stitches. You don't want those stitches coming out. I'm just going to go ahead along the curve and just sew, turning the fabric accordingly. Don't forget to take your needles out as you go. Once you get around here, you're going to turn your fabric again. And go all the way to the end and back stitch. Okay, so this is what it should look like. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this piece and flip it over, because that's going to be on the inside of our pants, because that's our lining. And then I'm just going to iron this down as straight as possible. And now you can see the pocket is coming along wonderfully. And like I said, any kind of overage that you cut, just go ahead and snip that off. I have a little bit of overage that I see on my pocket. I'm just gonna iron that down so it's flat, so when I'm working with my other piece, it's as even as possible. And for me, as you all know, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm straightening this out as much as possible. And these are for my little girl, but if you're making these pants for yourself or another adult, just use the same concept for making the pattern, making the pockets. Use the same measurements and everything you would for making a smaller pair, just in your size. Okay, so now we're going to work with the second part of the pocket, just the main piece. So what you're going to do, you're going to want to match this up with the side here, because this, oops, sorry, this piece actually needs to cover the outside here. So try to make that as even as you can up at the top. You could just cut off any extra. Move this over some. Okay? Because what's happening here now, move that up, and I have some stuff to cut out. When you look at it, you actually see that that is where the hand's going to go in, and you're going to sew this together here, and then when you add it to the back part, you'll have your front part here, and then you'll have your back piece, and that's how that goes. So what you're going to do, I have a little bit of overage here. Like I said, you don't have to worry about that. You can cut that. But you're going to attach this to this piece and sew it. And you can do a straight stitch, or you can do a zigzag stitch, like I said before. Whatever is comfortable for you. And if you cut too much of the main part of the pocket, just cut it off. It's not a big deal unless you just want, you know, a huge pocket. But for my little girl, she doesn't really like her pockets to be truly too deep. She's very picky about everything, so I have to be careful with things. And it did cut way too much of this main piece, so I'm just going to cut that even to my lining piece. And I tend to do that a lot, and it's okay if it's, you know, just a little over, because you can cut it when you're done sewing. So we're going to go ahead and sew this. Like I said, I'm going to use a zigzag stitch just because that's what I want to use for this. You can use a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch. It's up to you. If you're working with a more stretchy fabric, you definitely want to use a zigzag stitch when putting your pockets, your seams, anything else together, because if you use a straight stitch, it'll be too tight. Once you put the garment on, it's going to rip right off. Okay, so what we're going to do here, I'm just going to put a little pin right there and right here to keep that together, because we're actually going to sew the top of this when we're done sewing this pocket. So what your pocket should look like right now is something similar to this. And you're just going to sew. Don't sew up at the top. We just put the pins right there for to keep it still. You're just going to sew around the curve of the pocket. And I know this piece right here is kind of digging into that. You're not going to worry about that because that's going to be sewn to the side. So actually you're just kind of sewing around this kind of curved L shape here. Always back stitch. If you've been doing this for a while, or you haven't been doing it for a while, you can just kind of turn your fabric as you go. But when I'm working with stuff like this, I like to just go ahead and lift it up. Always take your pins out. And I'm sewing at about 1/4 inch using the ruler that's here on my sewing machine. Okay, so right about now, this is what your pocket should be looking like. So I'm just going to iron this down one more time. And like I said, you may have some overage. You can just cut that out. Don't even worry about it. And this you can just cut out, or you can cut that out after you've sewn your two sides together. So right now, your pocket should look like this. And what you're going to do is just put a stitch, a straight stitch across this little piece right here, not all the way across here. You're just going to start right here at the edge and just go all the way across. And that's going to be all the sewing we're going to do for now with the pocket. That's where we're making a separate waistband, so that waistband is going to hide that stitch. So if you want to just test your pocket out, just go ahead and put your hand in there. And look at there. We have our pocket. So you're going to do the same thing with the other side, and then we'll get started putting the front two pieces together, the back two pieces, and then making this one whole pair of pants. Okay, so what you're looking at now is your two front pieces with pockets. So now what we're going to do is sew our front pieces together. So you're going to match them up in the front to the crotch area here at the tip, and you're going to start sewing from there. And try to get it as even as possible. Okay, and then match up our front pocket area here. Trying not to sew that together. So you're going to move your pocket here out of the way, but you're going to still sew through that. You want this kind of lifted up out of the way, so you're not sewing that down. If you want that sewed down, that's fine. But I'm just not going to sew mine together like that. So okay. So now that we have that pinned down, we're going to go ahead and start here at this little tip, what I call the point of the crotch. And we're just going to sew. And like I said before, you can do straight stitch, you can do zigzag stitch. I'm actually going to use zigzag stitch. Just turning mine up a bit so my stitch is a little longer. Okay. Please back stitch. You want to secure it. Now, give me about 1/4 inch seam allowance. Taking my pins out as I go. When you get up here, it's going to be just a tad bit tricky. You're going to go all the way to the tip of that pocket. You're going to sew that down, cut it. Then you're going to take it, put it back in there. because you're going to sew that little piece that you didn't get sewn. You're going to sew that up in there. So that's just a little bitty piece of that pocket that's going to be sewn together. Okay, so when you take this apart, you should have something that looks like this. Okay, you can lay that flat, you can iron it. You see what I mean by why I wait to put my stuff in the washing machine, because I have all these extra threads and it's collecting lint and everything like that. So if you want, as you can see, this lining is coming up a little bit. If you want, before you sew this entire pocket together, when you sew the lining to the front piece, you can make a little stitch so that lays down. I just didn't want that look, so I'll have to make sure that I iron this down pretty flat so that lining part isn't coming up when she's wearing it. But that's just a little tip. You can do it. You don't have to do it. I'm not going to do it. So now we have our front piece sewn together. We're going to take our back two pieces and we're going to sew them together just like we did the front. And like I said, my pants are already right sides facing each other, so we're just going to sew the back pieces together just like we did the front. So now we have our back piece. So you're just going to connect the front and back piece together, and you're going to put them right sides facing each other. I always try to line up my two front seams. That way everything is as even as it should possibly be. So what I normally do when I line up those front two seams is I take a pin and I stick it there, and then I go ahead and pin my sides together. Okay, so let's start sewing. I'm going to use that same 1/4 inch seam allowance that I've been using, and I'm going to continue on with my zigzag stitch. Always back stitch, never skip that part, because as soon as you don't, that stitch will come right on out. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop here at the crotch area. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that when I do armholes and when I do the crotch area, I like to go over it a few times, just because my daughter is a little tomboy. She loves to play with her brother, she loves to flip, she loves to twirl, she loves to do flips and cartwheels and everything, and I like to have that area secure because you don't want her outside playing and she has a big old hole in her crotch. So I like to go over that a few times. So I go over once, then I back stitch, go over it again, back stitch again, and then go over it again. And that's just for me. You don't have to do that. That's just something that I do. Like I said, I just like to have that area a little bit more secure. We are almost done. Can you believe that? Okay, so this is what the raw area should look like, and you can go ahead and take that pin out where you matched up your front and back seam. And see how I said these are a little bit more wide leg? That's just the style of this paper bag pattern. So we have our middle sewn together, we have our sides sewn together, we have our lovely pockets here. Now it's time to do our waistband. So we're going to take these two pieces that we have, and you can sew the two sides together first, or you can sew them on here first and then put your sides then sew it all together. It's totally up to you. I'm actually going to sew my two sides together first, and then I'm going to attach it to the waist. So now that we've sewn together the two sides of our waistband, we're going to keep it with the wrong side still facing me. And you have your pants here, and these are still on the wrong side. So what you're going to do now is just take this, pull your pants inside here, and you're looking at both wrong sides of your waistband and your pants. So what I like to do is I like to match my seams, and I'm just going to open this up a little bit where we sew that 1/4 inch seam, and I'm just going to start pinning from there. Now, if you're going to put pleats in your pants in the front, now is the time to do it before you sew your waistband to the top of your pants. And you would do that by simply doing a pleat like this, or you could do a outward pleat, you could do a pin tuck, and we'll get into those things later on this month. So I'm going to take the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to go ahead and pin that. And I'm just going to put one pin in the front, one pin in the back, and then just sew all the way around. So I'm just going to go ahead with a straight stitch for this all the way around. And you could do a zigzag if that's more comfortable for you, if that's what you're more comfortable with. You can use a finishing stitch, would also be a great way. Just look at the different stitches, look in your manuals, see what the stitches are used for, see what will work best for you for the type of fabric you're using. I tend to do that a lot when I have a brain fart. So I'm actually going to start at the side seam. It's just what I like to do, just because when I do the back stitch you don't see it on like the flatter part, it's just mainly in the seam. So we always back stitch, then we're just going to go ahead and sew all the way around. Okay, so now with our pants on the right side, as you can see, I had a little mishap here. So the easiest way to fix that, because right now I should not be looking at my seam from my waistband. So I'm going to fix that really quickly, and at this point we're not going to use the lining for the casing. I'll have enough of this waistband to make a casing in the back for our elastic. So I'm just going to flip over this top row as small as I can and just iron that down. So what I've gone ahead and done for my waistband here is I folded this over. I'm actually not going to use the lining for this part because I missed that step before I actually sewed the back part to the front part. So I'm going to do this a different way, and I'm going to show you that. So I folded the top layer of the waist down. I'm going to take my elastic. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. I'm going to take my 1-inch elastic here, and I am actually going to pin it right in the middle here, right about there, so that when I flip this over to go ahead and pin that, that's right in there in that casing. So I don't want it like right up underneath, because this part that's folded is going to have to be attached here. So I'm putting it maybe about a 1/4 inch down, matching it up to that side seam right there. So I'm going to pin this, then I'm going to pull it ever so slightly to the other side. And before I pin the other side, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hold that down. And this part is the tricky part, but now that you see where you're going to cut it, if you have difficulty holding it down in the middle, then pin both sides first, and then go ahead and pin the middle. So I'm going to put a pin right there as well, trying to make it as even as possible across. You don't want it too far down. So I'm going to pin that right there. then I'm going to stretch this out, holding both sides, putting my finger right there, and I'm going to pin that. Okay, so when we sew this elastic to the back part of our waistband, we're going to stretch this through the sewing machine as we sew. And we're going to use, like I said, a zigzag stitch for this because we're working with elastic and we want to use a stitch that's not going to make it stiff so our seam doesn't rip when the child puts the pants on. So I'm going to start by making just a slight stitch first to get started. I am going to back stitch. Okay, so now I'm just going to start sewing. Pulling as I go. Okay, so at this point, this is what it should look like. And you see how I can stretch that and it's still holding that, the elastic is able to stretch. Now what we're going to do is fold this down. Now at the back, when you sew this, you're still going to go ahead and pull this because of the elastic. And at this point, keep on with your straight stitch. I'm going to go ahead and pin just because I have elastic in the back. I still want to pin it to make sure it's going to be right. Okay, so I'm going to start at the back of mine. Let's start in here. Always back stitch. We talk about this all the time. Yep, stuck on the needle. Okay, take that out. And let's go ahead and stitch. Okay, so this is what we have. The back is still stretchy. We have a flat panel front. And you can, if you want to add elastic to the front also to give you that little kind of ruffled look, that would be fine. Or you can add, like I said, a couple of pleats and you have a pleat in the front like that. And you could do that to the front part of the pants before you put the waistband on. So now that we have these done, you see our pockets are perfect. Put those hands in there. I can get my hand in there, so I know my daughter will be able to get her hands in here. So now we're going to work with the bottom part of the pants. And I'm going to turn mine in once. And because it's going to be on the inside, I'm not going to really worry about giving it a second fold. So I'm just iron that down. Make it easier for me to sew. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. Turn that down. You want to put the pants together to make sure that's even, because you don't want uneven hems at the bottom. And they are. So let's get some more. And this little armhole thing comes in handy. And I'm going to start at the side seam. Back stitch. All the way around. Now that we have everything done, I like to shake mine off, kind of get those little loose ends off. But I'm going to wash them anyway because I still do have some thread hanging on it. You can cut off your little extra strings that are hanging. Do the same thing on the inside if you need to. Cut these off. I'm just going to iron it down a little bit. Same thing on the other side. And here you go. Here's our pants. Cute, easy project. You can make your own pattern. These pants are really cute. I really like this. You can do so many things with the waistband. You can do different kinds of pockets. You can do pockets on the back. You can add a ruffle to the bottom. You can make them a little bit more wide leg. Just because I know my daughter, I didn't make hers too wide leg or she wouldn't wear them. The true concept of the paperback pants is to have a wider leg, almost like a culotte, but in pants form. But I know my daughter, so I know she wouldn't have gone for that. But this is the whole concept of the paperback pants. If you want, you can also add belt loops and do a belt along with the elastic, or you can add elastic all the way around. Eliminate the elastic altogether and just do belt loops. Make your pants a little bit wider on each side. That way you can do pleats. If you're going to do a pleat, maybe a 1-inch pleat or 2-inch pleat, half an inch, whatever you're going to do, whatever size you're going to make your pleats, add that dimension to each side of your pattern so you can cut it. If you have any questions about this project today, please feel free to ask me. Leave those questions in the comment. Check out all of my social media. Go to nikawomack.com and see what's going on over there. If you would like to connect with me on social media, I am on Twitter as Mama MAMA_07. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well as Tumblr. If you want to see me do anything, if you have a request of something for me to do, go ahead and put that in the comments as well, and I will get to that. I will add that to my list. If you want to see more of my channel, go ahead and subscribe. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will check you out next time. Bye.